Hi, thank you for joining us for episode number 5 of our Datavideo Tech Corner. My name is Steven and I'm here with Justin.
Hey.
We're part of the tech team here at Datavideo. And as always, we're open to suggestions for future topics or tutorials. Our goal is to help you learn more about video in general and also Datavideo products. So as always, we are streaming live to both YouTube and Facebook, and yet they're Tech Corner at datavideo.com. If you enjoy these streams, subscribe to our channel, and also share our videos. We'd really. Today we wanted to talk to you about improving your live production with the video switcher. So I want to start out with giving you just a little, I guess, definition of what we define a switcher as being. So a switcher is basically a device that will take a video signal, allow you to cut between another video signal. So in other words, you're basically taking live video sources and you're basically editing live. And in some parts of the world, they're also known as, we call them switchers probably more in the US, I guess, but in other parts of the world, they're also known as a vision mixer. So if we do, mention that term, at least you'll know that a switcher and a vision mixer is basically the same thing. So what are some of the benefits of adding a switcher to your production? We think it allows you to, basically it's allowing you to display output in real time. You can go to a projector, or you can go to a recorder, or you can go to a streaming device for that matter, so that you can actually get your content out to air in a nice fashion. So it allows you to cut between different camera views so that you could see what you're doing live. And what we think this does is it improves your production because you get to see different camera angles, and the different camera angles allow you to tell your story better, right, Justin? So in, let's say, a corporate presentation, you might have graphics, or you might have a panel and a host, and to basically communicate your message, you'll have that ability to move from camera to camera to show that in a better fashion. So what I want to do is kind of start out with giving you like a rough, let me pull this up here, basically a rough workflow of, let's see here, give me 1 second. Okay, so I'm pulling up this workflow, and this is going to give you like a rough overview of what a typical switcher workflow might look like. So on the left you have some block cameras that we're showing here, but I mean they could be robotic cameras, they could be cameras that are operated by someone. You basically have a CG or a PowerPoint computer that might add your graphics, or might add some other things that we'll show you a little bit later. But basically we're using our SC650 as just an example because it's just a simple to use 4-input switcher. So we're showing audio mics, we're showing how the output goes, where you'll have a multi-view, which we'll get into that in a little bit more detail shortly. We've shown our NVS30, which is our streaming encoder, but it could be any streaming encoder. We're just showing that as an example. So now that we've shown you kind of an overview of that, I kind of want to hand it over to Justin, so Justin can kind of give you more information about, basically switching fundamentals, right, Justin?
Yeah, let's teach the basics.
So maybe we can get an overhead shot of the control surface there. Great. All right. So Justin will kind of give us a little bit of an overview of that. So Justin.
Yeah, so building on what Steve was talking about earlier, with this switcher, it basically helps you organize multiple sources, be it cameras or graphics or other media. And the main buttons on the switcher are the input selection. So you're going to see on this one, being a 4-input switcher, 1, 2, 3, 4. But if you're not familiar with how switchers are designed for your workflow, 1, 2, 3, 4 is there twice. And the reason is you have 2 independent buses being fed the same sources. So a bus is basically multiple inputs being fed to a single output. So here you have on the top row program, which can be assigned as the default output on the switcher, as well as preview, which can also be assigned to an output, but typically you would use that for setting up shots. So yes, I could just switch my program by doing this, but I'm going to show you a workflow that helps prevent mistakes when you're especially doing some fast cuts. So we're going to hop over to the multi-viewer, and here we are again. And you're now looking at us through the SE650. So here you see there's basically 3 sections. Top right is the program bus, which is being the output fed to our main switcher. Top left is a preview bus. And then along the bottom, you see the individual sources, 1, 2, 3, 4. We only have 2. On the SE650, you also have some still buses that allow you to load still images for easy access. As you can see right there, we got a newspaper and a laptop and space. So also here you see on the bottom right, you can preview what is assigned to the outputs using the remaining space in the multi-viewer. So you can see my hand again now is I have control over the switcher here. You'll see if I do this, these are cuts. And this is an okay way to work, except, oh, there's no camera, and all of a sudden you're sending out no video, you're sending no signal to your output. So if you don't have sources for all your inputs and you want to not run into that mistake, the best thing to do is set up your shots using the preview buttons. That way you know you're not going to make a mistake live to air. And from there you have transition controls. So you can either do a manual transition with the T-bar, or you can automate it with pressing the auto button, or my personal favorite, cut. So as you can see, these lights are changing positions, letting you know what is currently program and what is currently preview after the transition. For auto and T-bar, that's assigned to currently a mixed transition or dissolve. But if you want to do a wipe, you just press wipe, and now those auto functions are assigned to the T-bar and auto button.
So Justin, what is the background button, or BKG, what's showing up here? It's abbreviated, obviously, but what is that typically used for?
Yeah, so if you want to do fade to black, and some of our larger switchers have a dedicated fade to black button, but you can have either a black, white, or there's a color selection as well for the background, and you can have basically a solid matte color for your transition. But the default is assigned to black, so you can do a fade to black using the BKG source. And so in the process of setting up these shots, you can also use this preview space to work in layer effects. And so with that, say, common one, as you're seeing actually right now in this example, is picture-in-picture, or PIP. Being the switcher in hand right now is a PIP over this multi-view. But within the SE650 here, you can see right here that I can queue up a PIP right over Steven's face.
Oh, no.
And then it will follow to program along with the transition. Because if I just do this to bring the PIP in and out, it'll cut. And if you don't mind that, let that be your preferred workflow. But by putting it in the preview, I can set it up, make sure it's what I want it to be, and then I get those exact results once I bring them over.
And I can duck if I need to.
So with with that, basically, you may be wondering, well, what are the different layers? What's the layer order? And if you're not wondering, we're going to tell you anyway. So
I'll bring that up for you.
yeah, so basically everything you saw so far, like the video itself is what we call the matte layer. And then anything you superimpose on top of it will be either an upstream key or a downstream key. And our switchers support up to like one or more upstream and downstream keys as successive layers. And they all generally follow this layer order. So the matte video is on the bottom. Key 1 and key 2 are considered upstream keys, like this PIP or a chroma key. The idea being that the keyer would key out the green background and superimpose the talent on the matte layer.
So we can think of this as basically layering, like if you were doing graphic manipulation, like in Photoshop, for example, there would be different layers that you might stack on top of others to enhance your image, essentially.
Exactly. And so that said, the DSK1 and DSK2 are successively on top of everything as well. Like you can see on the lower right-hand corner, we have a Tech Corner logo. That, of course, is on top of this PIP, which is, again, on top of this PowerPoint. So the PowerPoint you're looking at is the matte layer. The PIP was key 1, and then that Tech Corner logo is DSK1. So remembering this helps you organize your content, deciding what keyer you want to assign it to, and to make sure that you don't have a logo hidden underneath PIP or any other production issues like that. If you need more assistance with figuring out how to set up keyers, we have videos on our YouTube channel, as well as you can just contact support and we'll get you some resources to get you up and going with that.
All right, great. So what about, we kind of covered a little bit about the button surface, layout, stuff like that. Maybe we can kind of talk about a little bit more in detail. Well, I guess we talked about transitions a little bit. Did we talk, and we did talk about obviously some of the keyer functionality.
There is one more thing about actually transitions that we should cover.
Okay.
Is, and you know, if you're not familiar with this function, you may think that there's a bug or something's wrong with the switcher, but it's not. It's actually, if we go back to the multi-viewer, we'll show you what this TransBG button means. Now, say I want to bring in a PIP, but I want to keep my shot. So if I want to block Steven's face, I'm going to turn up PIP in preview, and then I'm going to turn off TransBG. So that basically temporarily disables the preview bus, and it puts program on both program and preview. And the reason you would want to do that is so that you can queue up PIP in preview, and then you can use a transition to bring it in. So if I turn off and then TransBG is automatically re-enabled. And say I want to bring it out with a wipe, I can turn it off again, change it to wipe, and then wipe away the PIP. So that's a helpful feature, but sometimes you might accidentally hit it or turn it off and you wonder where your preview went. It's just temporarily disabled for basically keyer transition effects.
So maybe we can go to the wide shot again of us so that we can kind of maybe talk about audio. A lot of customers sometimes have obviously audio mixers. They have several microphones. Maybe we can kind of elaborate a little bit on how you might combine that audio, that external audio, with whatever you're going to send out to your recorder or your streamer, you know, whatever you're doing. So Justin, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about how maybe this switcher, but also some of our other switchers might handle the audio portion.
Yeah, so we have two different input types for your mixer feed on our switcher line. So our smaller 4-input switchers like the SE500HD and SE650 utilize unbalanced RCA inputs. So you would just take an aux or tape out from your mixer, and because the audio is unbalanced, it is susceptible to interference, so you want to keep your RCA cable runs short. and you don't want to run them in parallel with any power. So if you do hear any static or line noise, it's likely that you're encountering some interference from that RCA cable run. On our larger switchers, they have XLR inputs, which are balanced, which means that they can cancel out the interference by design. So you can do a longer run with less susceptibility to interference. That said, it's looking for a calibrated line level signal, whether it's unbalanced or balanced, and from there, any adjustments you need to make would be from your mixer. So in the case of the 650, you would have the master up, and then you just set the aux at unison, so there's no gain or attenuation being applied to the signal, and you're basically using this, keeping this set up the way it is, and relying upon your larger mixer or console. Now, with the 650 and 500 HD, you could just run all your audio through this as well if you have a smaller setup. Say you only have 1 or 2 microphones, and you have, say you want to reserve the aux for a music player. You have everything you need right here for a simple audio setup. But that said, a lot of our customers' workflows and setups have their own dedicated audio mixer or console. So it's just a matter of getting a line out and feeding it to the switcher. Now, occasionally in support, we do get people who bring up that their audio levels from the mixer fed into the switcher are too low, but it sounds fine on speakers. And they want to know, is there a way to boost the switcher? Or they have it turned all the way up. And the answer is no. I mean, especially on the XLR inputs on our larger switchers, it's just set for that reference level and can't be adjusted. And the reason is that you would need to set the gain staging at your audio mixer's stage. You would want to go back there for some troubleshooting. This is probably like 1 or 2 episodes in itself.
Yeah.
So if you do have that issue, contact us in support, and we can walk you through your setup and determine where the issue is. And then, without getting into it too much, basically, a lot of it can stem from setting your levels for a PA, but you maybe haven't, set appropriate levels for recording or streaming video.
Okay, so that generally is a good overview with as far as we've covered the audio, we've covered the program rows, we've covered preview. I think we did some transition. We talked about keyers, and maybe one thing that we can touch on really lightly is just some basic keying as far as maybe Luminance key. Maybe people don't know what Luminance key is versus maybe Chroma Key. Maybe we can kind of touch on that a little bit. So Justin, how would you explain a Luma key, for example, versus Chroma Key?
Yeah, so the answer is in the terms themselves. So there's luminance and chrominance. And so with luminance in regards to, say, like brightness, you would say a Luma key will remove all of the black or all of the white in a video signal. And chrominance, meaning color, you can remove a specific color, which most often is going to be green. So with the Chroma Key, you generally have a green screen or a green background that's properly lit. And with that, the switcher has a number of settings to help you remove that color, as well as any artifacts that remain behind due to lighting issues or reflection issues. And that's probably like 3 episodes.
Yeah, we'll get into that in more detail in the future. I think the goal for this episode for us was just to kind of give our novice users some good background as far as some of the fundamentals with switchers in general. So we kind of started you out with the 650, which is a really easy to use switcher. So we've covered those. So now if we have any questions, let me see here. Someone was asking if, I guess it supports 50i or 25p formats specifically. I guess that depends on which switcher also, but most of them are generally the same, I guess. But maybe we can elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, so for that, it's going to be 50i and 50p depending on the model. So it would be like 720, 50p, 1080, i50,
Yeah.
and yeah. So we do support those frame rate frequencies across our models.
Okay, and then there was one other question from someone that how would we do a split screen with the switcher?
Yeah, so split screen on the 650, it has a single PIP. So in that case, you're going to want to center your talent on one side. So it won't have two fully configurable PIPs where you could do what we call a garbage mat or a masking mat or layer, where basically you say, we're working with 16:9 video, the aspect ratio. And so with that, you can basically use the mat to kind of crop it. And I'm not sure if we can pull up an example of that on the multi-view. I'll try to show it off real quick here. So let me just pop up this PIP real quick. So if I go into these PIP settings without my glasses, you can see down here it says crop, and I believe that's left. And you can see as I start to do that, we can make a tighter PIP. So you would center your talent on that second angle for the PIP, you crop the sides, and then you can make it fit like a half vertical on the screen, and then have the talent on the other side just be centered with the image, and you can basically create a split screen for the 650 with that.
All right, great. So I think we got one other question so far, that is someone was asking about actually user memory. So maybe we can get that overhead shot of the switcher control surface again. And maybe Justin, you can elaborate a little bit on basically what a user memory does in general, I guess.
Yeah, so user memory, which could also be known as a shot box, basically you can map a configuration of settings to a single button and then recall it with the press of a button. And some of our models have more user slots that are quickly accessible, like the 650 has 3, some other switchers have 6 to 12, and so it depends on the keyboard configuration. But what this would allow me to do is, say I have a setup with PIP that I want to use, I can press like this one. If I have a setup with Chroma Key that I want to quickly jump to, I can press this, and it will change the setting and layout. And so yeah, the reason I mentioned that is because it's a nice way to combine different configurations of key layer effects and help you organize your production. And basically it's like you're giving yourself 3 switchers in one with these 3 user buttons.
Yeah, it just enhances the functionality of the switcher. So I think we kind of touched on some of the questions. If you have any other questions, feel free to go ahead and add those now, and we can kind of see if we can address those. So we'll give you kind of a second here. But we did go over transitions, we did go over wipes. Obviously we showed basic wipes because the switcher, is basic functionality because it's more of an entry-level switcher. We do have some more advanced wipes with some of our other models as well. But let me see if there's any other questions. So I think we're at this point, we can kind of address them in the future. So go ahead and add your questions to the comment line. When the stream ends, we'll still be attentive to any questions you might have, and we'll address those later. As always, all of our production was done on Datavideo products, which is kind of nice. And if you have future episodes, go ahead and send us that email to techcorner@datavideo.com. And again, remember to follow us, share our videos, and give us some likes. We'd really appreciate it. And
Oh,
as
yeah.
always,
I gotta get in the habit of this.
we want to tell you, tech yourself before you wreck yourself. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.